All countries have their set of weird customs and laws, and Iceland is no exception. From legends of elves to a decades-long ban on beer, scenes in Captain America involving the Winter Soldier, the Christmas book flood to state-owned milk stores, there are loads of quirks and weird facts about Iceland's history. Did you know it's considered one of the world's first democracies? Or that it's one of only 3 European countries without a McDonald's? We've rounded up the most fascinating facts about Iceland to prepare you for your visit. Once you've got to grips with the weird and wonderful folklore and legends, we have lots of tours and activities in Iceland that can bring these tall tales to life. Please give it a like. Your support really motivates me to keep creating more videos like this. Let's jump right in. 1. Icelandic horses are forbidden to return. One of the fun facts about Iceland is that once they leave the country, Icelandic horses are not allowed to return. Basically, Icelandic horses are a pure breed, having been isolated for over 1,000 years, and are prized across the world for their hardiness. Iceland is a country completely free from hoof and mouth diseases, so it cannot risk re-importing a horse once it has left Icelandic soil. It's also to ensure the purity of the bloodlines remains intact in all Icelandic horses. 2. One of the most sparsely populated countries on Earth. One of the reasons for Iceland's beauty is that it's relatively untouched by human interference. Much of this country is not ideal for human settlement. The glacier Vatnajökull covers about 8% of the country's landmass, for instance. And we wouldn't recommend building a house at the foot of an active volcano. Consequently, Iceland has an average of about 8 people per square mile, or 3 people per kilometer. Like many sparsely populated countries, most of Iceland's people reside in cities. Reykjavik houses roughly 1/3 of the country's population. Iceland's population is about 350,000 people, so about 1/10 the population of San Francisco. 3. Captain America Civil War. Iceland's stunning landscapes were used to represent the remote and icy terrain of Siberia, specifically in scenes involving the Winter Soldier. One notable sequence filmed in Iceland is the opening scene, which showcases the dramatic and desolate landscape as the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes, hides out in a secret base. The rugged beauty and stark, snow-covered mountains of Iceland provided the perfect backdrop for these intense and atmospheric scenes. The specific locations used for filming include the area around Vik, particularly the Reynisfjara black sand beach and the surrounding cliffs and mountains. Reynisfjara Beach is renowned for its unique black sand, basalt sea stacks, and powerful Atlantic waves, all of which contribute to the scene's otherworldly and isolated feel. 4. The Arctic fox. Iceland has but one native mammal, and it is the Arctic fox. Its thick white, or blue or brown, coat changes color depending on the season, so it blends into the rugged landscape. This makes it a tricky animal to spot. The other mammals you might see in Iceland, the cows, sheep, reindeer, and horses, were all brought by settlers. The Arctic fox is thought to have arrived on Iceland after the last ice age, when the sea between Greenland and Scandinavia was frozen over. 5. Beer was banned until 1989. In 1915, a complete prohibition was in place across Iceland. In 1922, the government decided to allow Spanish wine because the Spanish were an important trading partner and they drove a hard bargain. Either Iceland would keep on buying wine from them, or they would stop buying salted cod. Prohibition was abolished in 1935, but beer remained banned because some believed it made people drink more, and its cultural ties with Denmark were seen as unpatriotic after Iceland gained independence. In the decades that followed, the discussion over legalizing beer was the country's hot topic, with televised debates attracting a lot of attention. Eventually, the beer ban was lifted on March 1st, 1989. Now Iceland celebrates Beer Day on March 1st every year. It's not the raucous bacchanalia that tourists envisage, like, perhaps, Oktoberfest, but you don't have to wait until March 1st to enjoy drinking beer like a Viking warrior. 6. Dogs were forbidden in the capital. In 1924, a complete ban on dogs was enforced in Reykjavik. Those out in the countryside could own working dogs for farming, but in the city, it was illegal to keep a dog as a pet due to increased cases of fatal tapeworms passed on from dogs. The rules have since changed and people can own dogs in Reykjavik if they get permission from the municipality and pay a registration fee. But Reykjavik has remained culturally a cat city, with felines prowling the streets, pawing at doors and winding around the legs of tourists asking for a scrap of fish. It's estimated that there's one cat for every 10 residents in Reykjavik. 7. One of the first parliaments in the world. Iceland is said to be one of the world's oldest democracies, as our ancient parliament, the Althing, dates back to 930 AD and is considered one of the first parliaments. It was formed between the lava fields and rocky ravines of Ingvellir, where the two continental plates meet. A flag stands at the spot where the parliament first gathered. 8. Shoes off. This isn't strictly a law, but Icelanders do not take well to people barging into their houses in shoes. They all leave their shoes by the front door. All flats and houses have a designated area by the front door where you take off your coat, hats, scarves, gloves, and shoes. Icelanders find it perplexing when people wear their boots indoors, but this might also have something to do with the weather. 9. A nation of peace. Iceland is not just peaceful in terms of population and quiet wilderness, it also doesn't have an army, air force, or navy. It relies solely on NATO for its defense. Of course, there is a coast guard to keep fishermen and sailors safe. The Coast Guard saw action during the Cod Wars throughout the 20th century, a conflict over fishing rights in the North Atlantic. After a series of skirmishes, Iceland won without the use of an established military. 10. You won't find a Big Mac. There are only 2 countries in Europe that don't have McDonald's. Okay, 3 if you include the Vatican, and Iceland is one of them. A lone outpost of the US burger chain operated in central Reykjavik for a few years, but the financial crisis saw its demise in 2008. McDonald's had always struggled to win over the Icelandic public anyway, with locals favoring the hamburgerabullen restaurant, Tommy's Burger Joint, instead. Of course, there are plenty of burger joints in Iceland, including Hagavagnin and Smass. You just won't find a Big Mac while you're here. 11. Best time to see northern lights in Iceland. Based on the local statistics, the best months to see the northern lights in Iceland are from late September to April. This period includes peak activity around the equinoxes in late September and March. According to scientists, during the equinoxes, the Earth's and Sun's magnetic fields align just right. That's why these stunning light shows happen more often. Late October and early April are also popular, but you might find weather conditions a bit more challenging, especially in the middle of winter. There is no specific hour of the day when to see the northern lights in Iceland. Generally, they are most active a few hours after sunset, especially around midnight. Usually, during Icelandic winter, the sun sets around 3:30 p.m., leaving you with plenty of darkness to work with. Our best advice? Stay outside as much as you can, keep checking the sky, and keep your fingers crossed. It's unpredictable, but when you do see them, it's nothing short of magical. 12. The Yule Lads. Instead of one omnipotent Santa Claus, Icelandic kids have contend with 13 Yule Lads who visit one by one on the 13 days leading up to Christmas. Kids leave their shoes out on the window ledge, and if they have been good, the shoe will be filled with sweets. If they have been bad, they'll awake to a shoe full of rotten potatoes. The Yule Lads used to be a lot more terrifying, but in 1746 parents were officially banned from winding their children up with scary tales of monsters. Each Yule Lad has a distinct personality and proclivity, from stealing sausages to licking spoons and slamming doors to keep everyone awake. 13. Icelanders are always outnumbered. Iceland has a population of around 375,000 people. If you count all Icelanders that have ever lived since the settlement of Iceland in the late 9th century, the population does not reach 1 million. If we count all the tourists as well, they've long since surpassed 1 million, Last year alone, Iceland received almost 2 million travelers. So in any one year, Iceland will probably see 5 times its own population in tourists. 14. The Icelandic Elves. Many Icelanders still believe in elves, or the Huldufolk, the hidden people. In a survey in 1998, 54.4% of Icelanders said they believed in elves in some form. There is a belief that building roads through elf territory can result in terrible consequences, and the Icelandic belief in elves is so strong that the Icelandic Road and Coastal Administration Department has a 5-page standard reply for queries and complaints about elves. Of course, not every Icelander believes in elves, and there are varying degrees of belief with some hardcore believers and some more on the fence. But the folklore and legend of Icelandic elves is certainly woven into the culture of the island. To be fair, it's hard to look at Iceland's rugged and ethereal scenery and not believe in the fae folk. So if you're planning a trip, prepare to be enchanted by its magical landscapes and rich history. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more fun and fascinating content. See you in the next one.